evening, everybody, and welcome into KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by Katie Maher, and actually today, right now, we are outside of Spratt Stadium because inside it looks like some of the college band is practicing for the game. They're playing some Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah,
What'd you think of that?
It's a good song to be doing this to. I'm not complaining too much, so you guys rock on in there.
Hey, they're jamming out. We're jamming out up here at Chiefs Camp. But the big storyline this week is it is officially a game week in Kansas City. So for the very first time since the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are getting ready to play a real-life opponent. It's the Arizona Cardinals coming up on Saturday, the first preseason game. It's not going to count to their record, but Katie, it really does mean a lot to some of these guys that are trying to make the roster.
Yeah, it means a lot because right now the Chiefs have about 90 players on their roster. They need to whittle that down to 53 in just a few weeks' time, and preseason game number 1 is usually where we see a big chunk of cuts get made after. So we're going to start seeing that number kind of dwindle down in the coming weeks. And I mean, for the nearly 40 guys on here who won't be making that active roster, these preseason games are their chances to shine. They can show that they can measure up against other NFL players. And likely, you know, the third team guys aren't going to be going up against the number 1 team guys from the Cardinals, but it still is their chance to show that they can do stuff in the NFL, and that can keep them there a week longer, and that's all that's about.
That really is what matters. And like so much of these games, like, you know, we get very excited to see Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I mean, those guys, I know they often say they're going to play a quarter in the first preseason game. I think we're probably going to see them just for a drive today. Offensive coordinator Matt Nagy met with the media, didn't really tip his hand as to how the team's going to divvy up playing time. He's probably going to wait for Andy Reid to answer that question. But I asked him, how does playing a game like the first preseason game affect what they do at practice? Because so much about this is, you know, getting ready for another opponent. And he said this week 1 of the preseason, does not change a whole lot. But even though we're not going to be seeing some of those superstars, there are a lot of interesting storylines to follow, because as Katie was talking about, so many of these guys are fighting for their jobs, for their livelihood. So maybe after those starters come out after the first drive, there's still a lot of interesting football to be played. Are a lot of these guys going to be playing in the final down of the Super Bowl? No, but they are going to be very important players to the Chiefs roster, and one of those we got to speak to today, Robert Tonyan. He's a tight end. Last year he didn't catch a single pass in the NFL, but 2 times in his career he's caught more than 50 passes. And Katie, I know you're working on a story, or worked on a story today about Robert Tonyan. It sounds like he really wanted to be here in Kansas City. Yeah,
you know, he said that in his free agency last year, the Chiefs were very eager very early on to get him. And you have to look at, you know, the realistic point of view is that this could very well be Travis Kelce's final year in the NFL. He's entering the final year of his contract, his 13th year in the league. Obviously, we're not going to know what his future 100% is for a very long time, but he is still up there in the age matter. And they're going to have to start planning for that. You know, they've got an amazing backup in Noah Gray. If Noah Gray didn't play on the same team as Travis Kelce, he'd be a tight end number 1 almost anywhere in the league. And we saw him obviously be used a lot more than in years past last year. But the Chiefs, you know, it's smart for them to plan for what their roster will look like after Travis Kelce is done playing in the NFL. And Tonyan is described as a guy who's a really good pass catcher. That's what he's been known for. So maybe he's not as heavy on the blocking side of the tight end scheme, but that's really good in an offense where you want it to be pass heavy and you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. So I don't think him being tight end number 3 on this depth chart right now is something it's not a negative. It's a good thing. Travis Kelce's your tight end number 1, so he's like in a league of his own out there. So he's basically tight end 2 on this team, if we're looking at it realistically. And if he can show that he can catch passes in a preseason game like this Saturday, he could very well make his case to stay on this roster long term.
Yeah, one thing that was kind of interesting to hear from Robert, because obviously he's an NFL veteran. I think this is his 9th year in the league, but he talked about how this is the 13th year that Travis Kelce has played in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. So he's talking about the spatial awareness that Kelce has out there on the field, because he knows at a certain point and in every play, he knows where everyone is going to be on the field. And Robert said that's something that he is still trying to develop here in this offense. And he also talked about with Kelce, sometimes when you be looking at it from the outside looking in, like he's like, we look at the film and we didn't really understand how he was so successful. But then when he came here to Kansas City and he got to talk to Travis, he's like, oh my gosh, mentally where this guy was at, like I totally see it. But Katie, I think the most interesting comments from Tonyan were what he said about Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, because he's one of the very few players in the NFL who has played for both quarterbacks. He said Patrick He can make all the throws just like Aaron, but he was really impressed with Patrick's command of the huddle and also his practice habits. What did you think of some of those comments?
Yeah, we actually heard a lot about Patrick Mahomes today, even though he didn't come to the podium because Matt Nagy talked about him a lot as well. And when I say we heard a lot about Patrick today, we heard a lot about his mental side of the way that he practices and the way that he prepares for a game is huge for a quarterback, obviously, and it's the reason why he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. But, you know, as he was saying, Mahomes has this aura about him in the huddle where he said that he comes in confident, he just comes in positive, and it affects the guys around him, and that's why the team culture is so good here. A lot of that starts A, with your coaching staff, but B, it has to also start with the quarterback. So mental side of Patrick Mahomes is good as ever. Yeah,
I love that you brought up the positivity, because that was something that really stood out to me from Tunyon. Was he said that he was asked about what makes Patrick different from other quarterbacks that he's played with, and one of the first things he said was that he has a lot of positive affirmations. And it was just to hear that from an NFL veteran, a guy he's caught 50 passes 2 times in his career. Like, he knows how to play in the NFL, and he's like, the difference with Patrick is the confidence that he instills in others, and so many times across any avenue of life, whether it's sports, business, any leadership position, the people that instill confidence in others get the most out of them, and we're seeing that happen right here in Kansas City with the quarterback. But speaking of Patrick Mahomes, just as Katie was talking about, Matt Nagy was talking about Mahomes and how Patrick last year statistically had one of the worst years of his career, did not play that he wanted to, and he was talking about how Patrick is getting back to the fundamentals to try to kind of unlock some more success out here in the NFL. But to hear Nagy talk about Mahomes' competitive desire, how he handles himself, we see all the stuff, all the highlights, but to hear it from the offensive coordinator, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and he also talked a lot about, we heard him first talk about going back to the basics about a week ago in camp, and how that was a big focus in OTAs for this team. After the Super Bowl loss, Matt Nagy was the one who said it was right after the loss. Patrick came in and he just wanted to kind of get back down to business, and that started with going back to the basics, coming off a down year, I guess is the right word to use, kind of. But he said that this past week they've kind of been graduating from the basics to now kind of the next level, and we saw that a lot. We saw a lot of deep passes today, and great stuff with Rashee Rice. We saw his connection with Travis Kelce a few times today, but we also saw a lot of deep balls to Tyquan Thornton.
Yes.
And we know that the rookie Jalen Royals has also been building a really good rapport with Patrick Mahomes. So I think that Patrick seems to be spending a lot of time this training camp building that chemistry with his receivers, because it wasn't there last year. Maybe they were great friends and all, but it wasn't translating on the field. So that's got to be what happens to make stuff happen.
Yeah, no, Tyquan Thornton really was making a lot of plays. And then also, at first when we were out there today in the media viewing portion of practice, it looked like, I was videoing like several straight plays of Mahomes. He missed Worthy, he missed Travis, he missed Worthy again. And then after that, he really turned it on. Like, I know it's just practice, like you can't take Patrick down, but guys, we were seeing Patrick put footballs in places today where no defender could have, like we were talking about the catch that people were going to see to Tyquan Thornton today. It was like, it could not have been placed anywhere else where Thornton would have caught it and the defenders would have missed it. And it was, it looks like the deep ball is back. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the deep ball is looking good, and it was good to see. Matt Nagy said that the offense had one of their best performing days, especially with Patrick. So it was good to see that. Tyquan Thornton making plays. Am I leaving anything out? Anything you want to say?
We did hear from Mike Edwards today, who's back in KC. Left a Super Bowl champion 2 years ago. He's been gone for 2 seasons, and he's back with Kansas City now. He's kind of stepping in as the vocal leader of the safety room after Justin Reed's departure. He picked off Patrick Mahomes today, and you'll probably see that video at some point throughout the day. But yeah, that was the only true falter that we saw out of Mahomes today. Mike Edwards said he has a lot of pride in creating turnovers, so that must have been big for him.
Yeah, he certainly has a knack for finding the ball, and just to hear him talk about it in the press conference about how he kind of saw the play before the play, and then he got the interception, is very cool to see. And I think you're working on a story about that, so people are going to be able to see that. We have great video of it. It's going to be awesome. So first preseason game coming up on Saturday. A lot of Chiefs fans excited for that, and we're going to see the boys return to action. So that's really all we have from the gridiron. But now to baseball. Yesterday, the Kansas City Royals taking on the Boston Red Sox in a game that's just pivotal for the American League wild card race. The Royals entered that game at 500. They had one of their new starting pitchers on the mound that they just acquired from Pittsburgh. He went out there and really no other way to say it. He got shelled. But it's just one start. We know he's a big leaguer. I think it was his 23rd or 24th start of the season, so he's a quality major league player, or at least can play at this level for an extended period of time. But Katie, I know a lot of Royals fans, Chiefs fans, they're all the same people. Yeah. Kansas City sports fans were really looking to see what the Royals would do, but yesterday that loss for me, it took a little wind out of the sails. What about for you?
I think it's going to come down to today's game because we don't need series sweeps.
Yeah.
We just need series wins. That's how the fans are feeling. That's what matters the most. Obviously, you want to get more wins on your record because right now they're kind of sitting in that uncomfortable 500 area, and that's going to matter a lot when it comes to the wild card standings. But series wins are more important than sweeps. And so if they can come back in game 2 today, make, even up the series, and then, tomorrow's a rubber match, all that fun stuff. But the Royals have won 4 straight series. Yep. And that's where the momentum really is, because I'm not too deterred by you lose 1 game a series. If you win 2, I'm like, that's good.
Yeah.
You did most of your job. So I think that's where the real momentum is, the fact that they're winning series. I'm not too concerned about the sweeping, a loss here and there. So, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see more series wins out of the Royals.
Yeah, 4 series wins in a row that helped them get back up to 500 and right back in the thick of the playoff race, although the playoff race that we're talking about is for the last wild card spot in the American League. It's not like they're competing for the division, but good to see the Royals playing better, and the bats certainly seem to have come alive in the last couple of weeks, so hopefully that continues. But when you're taking on the Red Sox, I mean, these are the teams that you're going to play in the playoffs. So I know the Royals are trying to get to that level, but even if you get to the playoffs, these are the teams that you're going to have to beat. So, I mean, if they lose the series to the Red Sox, if they get swept in Boston or lose 2 out of 3, I mean, that's the caliber of a playoff opponent. So it's like, if you want to get to the playoffs and you want to advance, these are the teams that you're going to have to beat. But good news for the Royals, after the Red Sox series, the schedule really, they're not going to be taking on world beaters. They're not going to be taking on the 1927 Yankees. So we'll see what happens with the Royals the rest of the way. But one last topic to talk about today, some college football. Yesterday, the coaches poll came out. Really wanted to talk about this with Katie because for the past several seasons, she's been really in-depth covering both KU and K-State. So K-State ranked number 20 in the coaches poll. You've covered Avery Johnson, you've covered Chris Kleiman for several years. What are your thoughts on that number 20 ranking? And then how do you kind of see the season playing out this year for the Cats?
I think it's a very appropriate ranking. I think K-State has a very, very, very good chance to win the Big 12 this year. I think Avery Johnson has a lot of doubters, and I think there are a lot of people who doubt this K-State team because of some struggles they had last year. Avery Johnson was still young last year. I was not expecting them to win the Big 12 last year. I said, 2 years ago when Avery was a freshman, I was like, in 2 years they're going to win the Big 12. You can put that down in writing. I said it, and that's going to be this year because he's an upperclassman now and he knows what he's doing. He's starting full time. He wasn't doing that 2 years ago. Last year was his first year doing that. Anyone who thought they were going to make it to the college football playoff and win games there with a sophomore quarterback, it just wasn't going to happen. Not to say that the team wasn't good, but he needed another year. Other guys on the team needed another year to kind of mesh with him. We see Avery loves his tight ends.
Yeah.
He's continuing to build chemistry with Jace Brown, who's always a threat in the deep passing game. Obviously, they're going to take a little bit of a step back in the backfield with DJ Giddens having gone to the NFL. He's now with the Colts. I think that K-State coming in at number 20 preseason is very appropriate. I think they stand in maybe one of the best chances to win the Big 12 this year. And they stand a very good chance of getting one of those bids to the college football playoff. So I thought that was appropriate. I thought Mizzou and KU both getting some ranked votes in that poll was also appropriate. KU still feels like such a dark horse to me, kind of, because they have the benefit of having Jalen Daniels. He's such a veteran quarterback, so much experience, but he does have the injury bug, and I think that's going to be something to watch for the rest of his collegiate career. And, there's also the fact that they have all new starting receivers. They had a trifecta of experienced veteran 5th-year, 6-year seniors last year in Luke Grimm and his two best friends, Quentin Skinner and Lawrence Taylor. And I'm like, without them, I'm a little concerned about what the passing game is going to look like for Jalen Daniels and company because there's going to be new faces there that just didn't get as much playing time last year. But Daniel Highshaw's back in the backfield, so it's good to have an experienced running back there when you're down Devin Neal now. So I think it's going to be a question mark for KU. If they do really, really well, I wouldn't be surprised. If maybe they take a little bit of a step back, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's kind of a weird year for the Jayhawks. But like I said, I think that K-State is probably my favorite to win the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I really have to echo what you said about K-State, but I think for both of those programs, so much of the season is really going to just come down to, and it's so cliche to say, but just about the quarterbacks. Like Avery Johnson, I really believe that he's ready to take the next step, but Jalen Daniels, I'm very concerned about him because I know last year I saw him a couple times in person. I know specifically the first game of the year that I saw him against Lindenwood, he looked like a guy that was just terrified of contact, a guy that, and you can't be like that playing football. And then I know obviously at the end of the year, KU kind of went on their run, but Jalen, with the contact and the injury, you've seen this for many, many years. What are your thoughts on all this?
I think that the number one most beneficial thing for Jalen Daniels this year is who his offensive coordinator is. I think that over the years, Jim Zebrowski and him have built a really good relationship, and they have a lot of chemistry. Zebrowski knows him very, very well and his play style. Zebrowski didn't get the nod as, the offensive coordinator. He was named co-OC, but he wasn't the one calling plays. That was Jeff Grimes last year. Jeff Grimes was just calling an offense that just didn't look like it was suited for the players that were actually on the field all season. But they did make a switch halfway through the season. Z used to be up in the booth, and Grimes was on the floor. They made that switch halfway through the season, and we saw Jalen Daniels' play improve. So I think that having Coach Zebrowski down on that field with Jalen Daniels is going to be the most beneficial thing for him, because that's just kind of his guy, and he knows his play style very well. And I think the fact that Coach Z is now the offensive coordinator, I think that is what's kind of being that, like, okay, this offense could be really, really good, because I think that Coach Z is going to prove himself this year as, Lance Leipold's offensive coordinator going forward. So I think it's going to come down to that for me. But again, it's about staying healthy, and that's something he struggles with.
The best ability in football is durability, availability, whatever you want to call it. They want to have their players on the field. But Katie, I think that pretty much wraps us up. The Chiefs' first preseason game on Saturday, 7 p.m. on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. Going to be exciting to see those guys. And anything else?
No, I'm listening to the music behind me.
All right, we're jamming. We're hanging out up here in St. Joe, but that's a look at KC Sports Tonight here on this Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody.